Hello, if you're looking for me, I've kept you waiting and I know. Welcome back. I am Gladys, and if it's your first time you're meeting me, we make cakes over here, and I try to make simple, informative tutorials to help you navigate baking and decorating easily. We're jumping right in today, and for those of you in the chat, hello there. There's Carabo and the rest of you. Right, why are we here? We made this ganache yesterday, and I promised that I was going to take you through an entire how to make simple white chocolate ganache for covering cake series. And I'm going to take you from the exact starting point, handing you every detailed information of my ganache making process that I use for covering cakes. And true to my promise, after making the ganache, I left it on the countertop over here. And this is what the ganache has been. So today's tutorial takes it from here, to how we prep this ganache and get it ready for covering a cake with. I'll be attempting to cover a small cake with the ganache unwhipped, just to give you the entire experience of how to make the ganache and how to use it. My hope is that when we cover the cake, it will be the unwhipped form of ganache, and then in later series we will whip the ganache, and then you'll get to see the results of it. So if it's your first time you're seeing me again, hello there and welcome back. Great to have you. There are a few of the lovely people, Auntie Jackie, Carabo, the rest of you in the chat, hello there. It's been a very long day, and this tutorial I am aiming is going to be packed with information to help you. So if I am not so engaged in the chat, you're not on your own, okay? Keep company with each other, but get your notepads, grab a cup of tea, sit down, and let's get onto this. Because when I do this, I'm going to try and clip it so that you have the highlights of the process, and then you get to have the choice to come back to the full tutorial to watch it if you want to. But I'm hoping the highlights, which will be clipped into a long form video for about 10 minutes, will still cover the entire process. The goal of the lives is to give you a raw, in-depth tutorial without the editing. But I know that it also gives you a very specific experience that if you miss out on, you probably don't have the motivation to come back to it. So for those of you who stick with me all the time, thank you for being here. So we made the ganache yesterday, and if you don't know, the ganache video is up already on the live format from yesterday. I talked you through this particular ganache, and I did make specifically clear that there are so many ways of deriving ganache, and there are different forms of ganache for different things. But this specifically, just so that we stay on the subject, is simple white chocolate ganache for covering cakes. And I made this specifically using white chocolate, some corn syrup, and some double cream. If you check the last video, I spoke about the difference between fresh cream and double cream, and why the labeling is important and why you need to understand what it is. We also touched on the subject of the chocolate choice, the brands, and how that affects outcome. I chose an Aldi owned brand, which is accessible, because I was also trying to make a point of why that chocolate may probably yield slightly differently, and why you should be concerned about labeling and also the ingredient composition when it is indicated on the packaging for you. So all of that information is available. The ganache we made, it's in its raw form, no editing. It went into the microwave at 2-minute intervals, and before we knew it, we were done. So 3 ingredients, maybe 4 if you count in a pinch of salt, and this is what we have over here. Like I said, I left it on the countertop, did nothing at all, didn't touch it, and this is what we have. And I am reiterating the point of doing nothing with it because I am still like fascinated sometimes by why ganache for covering cakes is still very difficult for people and the questions I get. So my attempt at this video is to cover almost all the troubleshooting points and where possible make it easier for you to understand the ganache process. So it is really key for you to understand that after deriving the ganache, I left it on the countertop, did nothing to it, and here we are. Okay, so when you follow the exact processes that I showed you in the last video, you should come to this point where your ganache looks like this. I know this turning the bowl down doesn't mean anything to you, but I just want to show you how the ganache looks in the bowl. But most importantly, we are going to look at the consistency. The consistency here is, it's almost like it's not hard, but there is tension when I'm stirring through it, right? It looks like chilled peanut butter. Now, if you follow the exact process that I showed you, this is what you should have, and it is really important you understand what this means. When the ganache is looking like this, you are not going to be able to use it to do anything. You can't cover a cake with it. It will give you problems. So from here on, there are a few steps we have to take and a few things we have to do before we cover a cake with it. Now, let's have a look again. If I had a thermometer, I would be telling you the temperature of it. But you know what? Much of understanding ganache is also by visual cues and observing. So as you can see, if it feels like it's butter that has gone to sleep after chilling, and mind you, it's cold in the UK today, but not too cold. I mean, we're in the autumn, winter seasons. If this was in the summer, it would be slightly different and I would have to put the ganache in the fridge. This didn't go in the fridge. This is at room temperature on a countertop, and it's still like a little bit, there's a bit of tension here, right? So if you have this, let me just find another way of showing you that again, the consistency, because it is really important, because once you get the consistency messed up, that's where the trouble for ganache starts. So if you look at it again, look, there's a lot of tension here. It's not like asleep, it's not like solid, but there's so much tension in the bowl here, right? And at this point, even when I'm shaking the spatula, yep, you get the point. I'm going to wash my hands and I'll tell you what we are going to do following on from here, right? Okay, so with the ganache looking like this, the first thing you want to do, obviously I'm using the microwave. It is the most convenient way of yielding my ganache. If you use any other means of deriving or melting your ganache, it should yield you similar results, because some people use a double boiler or like some form of heat. I use a microwave. So it's simple white chocolate ganache made with the 3 ingredients, which is white chocolate, double cream, corn syrup, and a pinch of salt. Just these things, put in the microwave to warm up to 4 minutes, and we are done. It sounds that simple, and it really is. So with this and the consistency done, hear me when I say, we are going to have to bring this to a spreadable peanut butter consistency. But it is really important that you understand what you're looking for, because at this point, if we put it back in the microwave and we go past the heating point, the ganache breaks and we're back to square one, and it's no use. So the sensitivities around the consistency of ganache and the yield and how you use it starts from here. Now I'm going to put that in the microwave and we'll probably count to 10 and we'll see where we'll take it from there. So it starts now. My microwave, before I turn the microwave on, we had a whole conversation about microwaves yesterday, which is that the microwave, the wattage should be important. Mine is about 900 watts. Some people have about 1200. So I'm unable to give you the exact times because settings differ from microwave to microwave. But whatever microwave you are using and how you adjust your settings, just keep an eye on it. This is not the sort of thing that you start and then you get distracted and go off and do anything. I mean, I cannot even run a tap of water when that happens. So hear me when I say it's gone in the microwave. Let's close the microwave, and it's on full power now. Let's give it 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, 10 seconds. Okay, let's have a look. You don't want to risk it. Seriously, you don't want to risk it. Okay, not much has changed, right? There's still tension, but it is easing a little bit, right? So we are going to do another 10 seconds. Okay, it goes back in. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. There we go. Okay, it's back. And at 20 seconds, this is the consistency I am aiming for. Exactly. It's like, think about easy, you know, when you buy the fake Nutella, because Nutella, there are different brands, right? And Nutella is what, hazelnuts with chocolate mixed into it. And why have I just taken a detour down to Nutella Road? Okay, when you buy the actual Nutella, right, and it's cold, it's really set, and when you're spreading it on your toast, you can, when you kind of dish it out of the pot or the tub, you can feel it's firm, but as soon as it goes on the toast, it melts, and then it looks very oily, and you have like the oil film on top. But if you go and buy the fake Nutella, which is their knockoff brands, they are not called Nutella. They have different brands. I would know because my son loves them. And some days I pick the Aldi own brand or Lidl own brand. When you dig your spoon or knife into it, the consistency is not the same. One is a little more softer and tends to sort of thin out a little bit compared to the original Nutella. I say that to say that that's the consistency you're looking for your ganache when you put it back in the microwave. What you're looking for is you don't want to break it, because the moment you break it, when you look at the ganache, you can see a thin film of oil on top of it. That's when you know that you're going to have problems. But what you are actually aiming for in the 15 to 20 seconds, we did it for 20 seconds, but this is 900 watts. I can see in here, Lollipop has 700 watts. So on full power, she may probably need about 25 seconds. I'm not sure. I'm only assuming. My point is, what you are looking for is a sort of easy, spreadable peanut butter consistency, right? This is what it should look like. When it looks like this, that's all you need. If you can't see what I am showing you simply because of the lights and its effect, what you are looking for is to be able to run your spatula through this easily without tension. And that's what you're looking at, right? We went from literally digging this through to easily running this. And this is what we have. And in terms of timing, from the countertop to the microwave and back at 900 watts full power, that was 20 minutes exactly. If you have 1200s, then of course that should be less. At full power, you should be looking at 12 to 15 seconds. And if you have 700, you should have 25 seconds. We're talking seconds, not minutes. If you put this in for a minute, your ganache is broken. All right, so that's the ganache we have now. At this point, your ganache is completely okay to use for covering a cake. This is unwhipped, because there's a difference between the whipped ganache and unwhipped ganache. So what I'm going to do is trying to see if I'm going to cover a cake in the unwhipped form, just to give you the full experience of what it looks like. I have a cake in the fridge. I'm going to go get it out. In the meantime, yesterday when we discussed it, I did say, come back, ask me all your questions about ganache, and I will answer them for you. So if you have further questions about ganache, put them in the chat and I'll answer them. If you don't, perhaps as the series develops, I'll be back to answer more questions, and I'll be breaking down some of the trouble spots that may arise with the use of ganache for you. Oh, and whilst we're at it, at any point after you've got your consistency right, if you leave the ganache for any longer, for a reasonable amount of time, it will go back to setting again. And here's the tip. Every time it happens, do exactly the same thing we did, except keep an eye on the time. Because when you stir it too much and it sets, sometimes it sets harder. So you're probably going to adjust the time. But when you do go back to putting it back in the microwave to get it back to a consistency, a spreadable or usable consistency, just make sure that you are keeping an eye on the time. That's just something to know. So even after deriving this consistency here, chances are if I left this 20 minutes later, by the time I come back, this has set literally solid. And I have to go back to bringing it back to room temperature and spreadable again. All right. So remember that. And one of the things that you're advised to do when you're using ganache is to make sure that you have a mechanism or a way to bring it back to a spreadable consistency real quickly. So sometimes you're advised to sit it in warm water, or have something that warms the bowl that you're working with. If you're a beginner, that can be completely tricky, because all you're trying to do is make sure that you don't melt the ganache over the needed consistency, but you also want to be able to use it when you need to. And doing all that can add a little bit of tension and just make your working process longer than you need. So all I'm advising here is that just keep an eye on your consistency. And if you're using a microwave, just make sure you pop it back in, bring it back out. Don't get distracted. Don't be tempted to do anything other than what has been recommended to you, and you should be fine with that. I'm going to leave that to the side, and I'm going to rush off and get the cake, and then we'll move on to trying to cover the cake. Most importantly, before you even consider covering the cake or doing any of what we've done here, make sure you are organized. Make sure the cake is sorted first of all. Make sure you get all your tools. When you're working with ganache, it's important that your tools, if they are stainless steel, are all sitting in warm water, because ganache will scrape easily if you're using the right tools in the right way. So I have a glass bowl here, and everything I'm going to be using in terms of the ganache, I have a long tub here that has a glass sitting in it. I am boiling some water here, which will go in the glass bowl to keep my stainless steel tools here for scraping warm and easy to clean on the ganache, whilst the tall tub here will contain my spatula and offset stuff that I'll be using to cover the ganache with. So let's go get the cake here quickly and then see how we go. Whilst we're at it, I have created a ton of videos on here using ganache, much of which are on the live formats for you to see. This is actually the very first time I'm covering the subject of ganache in details, but you can go back and see some of my videos where I use ganache to cover cakes, and you see the covering of the cake from start to finish. The only difference now here is that you have context of how I make the ganache and then use it on those cakes. Well, We have a very small 5-inch cake here. It's 4 layers. It stands at 6 or 7 inches high. It's not that big a deal. I'm just going to use the ganache to cover it in its unwhipped form, just to give you some idea about what ganache looks like. Naturally, the cake has been filled and trimmed completely. And so I'm going to add the warm water to my tools. And then we'll get to working with it. Again, just so that we are sure, the consistency of the ganache remains just the same. Spreadable peanut butter consistency. And my cake here is chilled. So I am going to start by just putting some ganache on here. And the handy warm metal tool means I can spread the ganache easily around the cake. We are crumb coating, so I am not concerned. If you use the right tools the right way, you should be able to get some great results with that. So there you go. Now, one thing I haven't done, if you're crumb coating or you are going to be using the ganache in different phases, I don't want to add crumbs here into the bake tub. So for the crumb coating, I've just dished a bit of the ganache on the side, and all I'm doing is spreading it around the cake. It's not your regular crumb coat where I am applying a completely thin layer. Where I am applying a complete thin layer. I am crumb coating to seal in the crumbs, but I am adding more than I really need here. Now look out for the consistency of ganache, which is what I am using it. There's a bit of water on here. You can wipe your tool clean if you like. Okay. Right, at this point, you know, the covering of a cake is all about one's own skill and technique. Now you can see holes and air pockets, and it doesn't look even at all, even at a crumb coat stage. I will not be inclined to forcefully crumb coat this cleanly at all. For a crumb coat, the idea is to seal in the crumbs so that they don't show through the next phase of covering. Consider it a primer of some sort for makeup, where you sort of prep the base ready for the layers of makeup, if you like. So with the crumb coat done this way, even as incomplete as it looks, I am not concerned. The focus here is to focus on how the ganache spreads over the cake. We can see the ganache is looking set. And from just one simple spread, I mean, I've got to also admit that skill and experience comes through. But even for a beginner, the use of ganache guarantees you set stability. Look at how easy spreading the ganache and scraping it off in a couple of like scrapes we are here. If you leave this to set completely, it will set, and to touch, you won't feel anything on your hands. And then you add the other layers, but I won't bore you with that side. I'm going to leave this in the not in the microwave for sure. That's no good for it. I'm going to leave it in the fridge again whilst we clean up this, and I'll answer some of your ganache questions if you have any. And then, yeah, we will come back and cover this so that we'll see if we'll get a polished look to this cake. All right, let me just wash my hands now. Right, the cake is already in the fridge. It shouldn't be in there for long. For ganache, considering the state of the cake layers I chilled before stacking, so they came out really chilled. So they've held together nicely, and with the contact with ganache, it has set. So I'm going to leave it in the fridge for maybe 10 to 15 minutes. That should be enough to set the ganache. We'll bring it back up and we'll apply more layers for you to see. In the meantime, the consistency, as you can see, the ganache is going back to sleep again. It is going back to sleep. So if I leave this here, it will go back to sleep. So I'll leave it as such and wait till we get the cake back. And if this goes to set again, you will see how I will bring it, I will troubleshoot and use it in the covering of the cake, because I want you to see the complete process and what that looks like for you. Jackie says that looks easy for you, which is, she believes it's, she says it looks easy for me, but it wouldn't be for her. Jackie, say it with me. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. A bit of class on the side, some will, and determination. I'm sure you've done harder things, honey. I'm sure. So you'll be fine. I mean, the tutorial is here for you to see anyway, so you can always come back to it. It may look like it is harder for you, but believe me, you'd be surprised how much willpower will get you, okay? You'll be fine. Now, if you're in the chat and this is your first encounter over here, hello there. Thank you for stopping by. We make cakes over here, but that's not the only thing we do. We catch up, we chat, and we are friends. So if you fancy looking for some new friends to hang out with, you're welcome, okay? Consider joining the channel and let's stay here. If you want to know, I had a 10-day break from YouTube and I was a bit mad. I was mouthing off and I gave a long, lengthy explanation to what that was. If you want to catch up, especially for the benefit of those of you who weren't here yesterday, go see what that was all about. YouTube took a long... YouTube was tinkering down the pier, trying to take a jump. And some of us were like, really, really, really? And that's where we are. So if it's your first time being here with us, thank you. And we hope you stick around. And this is probably the only time I'll ask you for a favor, which is that if you haven't considered liking a video, please do. Unless perhaps you haven't learned anything. Have you? What's something you've learned about ganache that you didn't know before? Let's see in the chat. Tell us something you have learned about the ganache process, especially for those of you who were here yesterday. Tell us something you have learned about ganache that you didn't know before. Well, our crumb coated ganache cake is back, and on touch you shouldn't feel anything. Yep, there you have it. Right now what I am going to do is I'm going to clean the top. Okay, and I am going to reuse what was used for the crumb coat to fill that side. And again, we're crumb coat. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10 seconds. And yep, 10 seconds, we are done. And I am going to fill the parts that were left. Okay. Okay, still with a warm blade, we're scraping. And that's it. So that's generally the crumb coats done. I'm going to fill the bottom side here. The focus here is to think about the ganache and its application and not the cake, the decorating process of the cake itself, right? The most important thing I'm trying to show here is how ganache is used instead of focusing on the decorating of the cake itself. So if you see me kind of moving rather quickly, it is because I'm not trying to teach you how to decorate a cake. Because if we want to decorate a cake with ganache, that's a whole like module of class I have to cover. And I already have like a ton of videos here on the channel where we really cover the subject of cake decorating in various forms, in long form. So it is just so that you know how ganache is made, and then go catch up on the other tutorials about cake decorating. Not for this particular class, but maybe in future I'll come back and then we'll pick up a particular cake and then I'll talk you through it. But for now, we are just trying to just cover it, a cake and ganache. And as you can see, just like that, the crumb coat is never perfect. The aim for a crumb coat is not to aim for perfection. And so if you were a beginner and you were able to cover a cake up until this point for it to look like this, power to you. That's like good work. So here's what we have with the ganache crumb coat all done. It's sticky to the touch because of obviously the warm blade that is used around it. So again, like most cakes, you want to leave this completely to set before you do the next coat. So this is what using unwhipped ganache for a crumb coat looks like. Now I'm kind of in two minds of whether we should continue and then cover the cake completely so that we get a full-on completed cake, or we should move on to whipping the ganache and then covering it so that we can see. You decide. Should we whip? Should we complete? Decide whilst I put this in the fridge, and I'll be back to talk to you. But in the meantime, that's what we have over here. Need to get the work table all set. I did ask the lesson about something you've learned about ganache you didn't know before, so I'll be coming to answer that. There we go. So let's go put this in the fridge. Okay. Lollipop was saying in the chat she just got here and she hopes she hasn't missed anything. I don't think you did, because I got in and I just went straight into the class session, because it's been a long day trying to like juggle lots of things, and because of the half-term school break as well, like there were commitments that has kind of kept me a little bit occupied as well. So thanks for your patience. Lollipop says, I learned about the different thickness for different things. Yep. I've just served dinner, so I'm off now. Okay, Lollipop, I'm sure you'll catch up later. I didn't see your message sooner, so yeah, have a good evening, lovely. Lollipop, good vibes. Starla, hello, and okay. Yeah, so we missed Lollipop, but there's Carabo here, there's good vibes, there's Aunt Jackie. Aunt Jackie, it's been a little while. How are you? How has October been? October has been a bit sketchy, and YouTube literally went left on us for a little bit, so I haven't been here much, okay? I think I was off for 10 days, and it was my first day back yesterday. Yeah, it was my first day back yesterday after like 10 days, and the month is nearly over. But yes, always great to be back and to have you all in the chat. So the decision, the question was for you to decide if we want to cover the cake completely in ganache so we can see what it looks like, or we should just let it be. What do you think? What would you do? Right, I think now that I've shown you what the consistency of ganache is for covering the cake, perhaps we should whip this part and then cover the cake with, so that you will see what the polished look will be like. Then again, let's go and have a quick look at what the ganache looks like from when we started working with it till now. Look, I told you if you leave it, it will set again. So it has gone back to being set again, except at this consistency, I'm not covering the cake with it. So I am going to whip it up and then we will finish covering the cake in it. So normally, think about it this way. Think about it this way. When you get your ganache from room temperature 24 hours later after making it, you have the choice to whip it after you've brought it to a spreadable consistency, or you can use it unwhipped. So the crumb coating has been done with the unwhipped form of ganache. Now I'm going to whip this quickly, okay, so that we can use that to cover the cake. The difference is in how it covers the cake and how polished the look is. Essentially, when you whip the ganache, you are adding air and you are expanding the particles and adding volume. So it is not a tightly set cake when you squint, but it also allows room for you to add color. It sets well, and the look, it's neither here nor there. It's not one is right, one is wrong thing. It's a choice thing, and sometimes a necessity thing. So for instance, if I was making the cake as a semi-naked cake, because the whipping introduces a bit of air and changes the color and lightens it a little bit, I am inclined to go for a semi-naked cake by whipping the ganache. But if I was going to do a fondant covered cake, I much rather not whip it, so that I can get the full effect of the unwhipped ganache, which sets solid, so that I can gain form to the cake. So one is not better than the other. It is only detected by your decorating objectives and the circumstance at the time. So for the crumb coat, we've done that now. So I'm going to whip this real quick. And the whipping is not much. You can use a hand mixer, but I have used a stand mixer for the entire time. I actually don't use a hand mixer because I can't control the speed. So I'm going to use my K-Mix. Again, the timing is in seconds. You're talking 40 seconds to a minute maximum, no more than that, depending on quantity. But just so that I can get my best results, I work with my ganache in small, manageable quantities. That is something to note. If you made a large batch, even for say a 5-tier cake, I will still make my ganache in 900, as in 1.2 kilogram bits, which is 900 grams of chocolate with 300 mils of cream and corn syrup, a batch. So I then make small batches like that, maybe about 5 or 6 batches, so that I can work with it. And that is how that works for me. If you have other means that works for you, by all means stick with it. But I am literally just handing you my ganache blueprint for how I make and use ganache for covering all my cakes. Let's get the mixer here. Spreadable consistency straight into the mixing bowl. balloon whisk. Come to think about it, we have a minute till 7. So there you go. 40 seconds. 40 seconds. I wish I had a timer, but let's go. If I turn this on and I'm not talking, it's because I'm counting. So count with me if you want. Okay. And this is whipped at a medium high. So let. That is 35 seconds at high speed. That's all I need. Example. I have never whipped my ganache any more than 50 minutes at all. If I had the full quantity of ganache that I made earlier, that would be about 40 to 45 seconds, really. And this is exactly what I mean by whipped ganache. You don't need to do any more to it. So it was whipped at high speed, remember that, not medium high as I said. Again, it's come back to very spreadable consistency. It's a lot lighter, it's easier to spread. Don't be tempted to do any more than that at all, because that will yield you some devastating results. I'm going to turn my kettle on because I need some warm water, and then we're going to go and get our cake back. Quick one just to give you some visuals of what the whipped ganache now looks like. This is what we have. Look, it may look like it is no different from the consistency earlier, but if you look at it, the particles have spread a little bit. The surface looks a lot more broken, but still will cover a cake nicely. So there we have it. There you go. Right, at this point, if you leave this a little longer than necessary, it will set again. So this is a race against time to get it right. So I'm going to go get the cake whilst the kettle boils, and then we will cover the cake. If you're in the chat, I'm not ignoring you at all. I have to focus and complete these tasks quickly, and then I will make time and talk to you. I think I saw Dolly say hi. Dolly, hello my lovely, how are you? Good to have you back. I hope you've had a good day. So quickly whilst the kettle is boiling, let's have a look at our cake now. Look, when I tell you ganache is the thing, can you see? Your hands can be a bit warm, mind that, but still, when you touch the cake, nothing, right? The top is looking a little bit unkempt, so we are going to just scrape that all off. Into a bowl. And essentially, if you were a beginner and you were able to cover a cake till this part, that's brilliant, right? Now that we've whipped the ganache, again, same process. If you leave the ganache and it's a set and you don't know what to do, again, put it in the microwave. But be mindful that now that you've whipped it, it's more easily broken. So you probably need to tune down the timing a little more than what we initially worked with. But I am going to use my warm spatula to kind of get in here. And then there you go. So with the same spatula, now that we've sealed in the crumbs, all I'm doing is covering now. Because we've whipped the ganache up, it is likely to show up with air bubbles, but don't panic, you can solve that problem easily. Okay, now again, scrape. Okay. The difference here is that because it is whipped, sometimes you can see slight texture on it. It's not, 1 second. If you see texture on it, it's not a good or a bad thing. It all depends on your goals and objectives. So I'm going to go back in. And there you go. I mean, scraping a cake or the decorating process is in itself a whole thing to learn. So as you can see, if you're a beginner, never covered a cake before, and you're able to work your ganache till this point, I mean, that's like genius, right? But let's go back and seal in the surfaces. Okay, and in the same breath, still keep your tool warm. Wipe it down if you must, and again, go around it. I know I'm attempting to do the scraping in one motion. If I was teaching this as a cake class for a beginner, probably one motion may not be advisable. So please, please, please do not feel as though this is the way you should cover your cake. As I've reiterated before, the intention here is to focus on the ganache and not the decorating process, right? So again, if you squint, you can see particles on here. So you go back and you cover those particles over. Okay, right. Now there's only this little bit here I want to cover, and I'll probably call it a day with this one. I am pleased with this. Okay, let's see. Okay, that bit over here. Okay, and just like that, that's yeah. Can you see perfection here? No, because that's not what I am aiming for. What I am aiming for is demonstrate the use of ganache for covering cakes in its basic form. So you've seen how the whipped ganache goes from being made to leaving it on a countertop for 24 hours, coming back, bringing it to the right consistency, crumb coating the cake, whipping the ganache, and then finishing it all off. So what I'm going to do is wipe my sides, get the cake clean, put it in the fridge, come back, clear the top, and then that will be our cake done, essentially. If you have some more questions for me in the chat, after that I will take the questions and I'll be able to answer some of your pressing ganache cues over there. But in the meantime, I hope you are finding this ganache class useful. Okay, I really hope so, because you know what, my evening is not done yet. When we finish, I have to bake a cake. My head hurts. Okay, there you go. So put in the chat if you think you can make ganache and use it up until this point. Don't be intimidated. You've literally watched me do it. And this is not the only cake I've made here. I've made a ton of cakes on the channel, and you've been here long enough. If you think at this point you still cannot stack a cake and cover it, I'm wondering what you're really doing here. Are you here for the lesson or you're here for something else? I don't know. So let's see in the chat. Are you going to be able to make a cake and put it together as this? Because I like to think I employed completely beginner friendly means to finish it all off as it appears. There you go. Right, so let's go set the cake in the fridge again to set, and then we'll trim the top and we'll say adios to this cake. But then that will bring it to an end for how our cake is kind of like, yeah, done. Right, let's go put it in the fridge. Okay. Dolly was asking, are you doing only ganache on the cake? What do you mean, Dolly? Do you mean am I just covering the cake with ganache and doing nothing else? Can you just elaborate on your question? Because it's a ganache cake, so that's all I'm doing, which is I've covered it now, and that's what we'll be doing. Obviously, I'll be decorating it, but the decoration will be done another day, and I don't know if I'll be coming back to complete that on a live. The goal is actually to show you how we make the ganache and then we use it. That's what I'm doing. So yeah. Seasons. Steph is back. Steph. Okay, so Dolly, are you asking if I am decorating the cake? As in, am I going to be adding anything? Of course, it's a full-on cake that I'll be decorating, but that's not the subject here, you know, because I don't know if I really have time to kind of decorate the cake fully and finish it off as a decorated cake. I kind of feel like it will be taken away from the subject that we're trying to focus on. So yes, it is going to be a fully decorated cake. I'll probably post some pictures when I'm completely done. But for now, we are using the cake for demonstration purposes. Does that make sense? Yeah. Steph, how are you, my lovely? You add buttercream. No! Why would I add buttercream? Do you add buttercream to your cakes? It's okay, just for clarity. I do know that people add ganache cake on the base and then add buttercream to finish it. No, we are not doing buttercream. I've always said, Dolly, I've always said I don't do buttercream cakes. I don't have any reason for it. Yeah, it's a ganache cake. That's the simple answer. It's a ganache cake. I'm not making a buttercream cake at all. Yeah? There is it Guz or Giz? Aim. Hi. Is it Guz? I don't want to butcher your name, but you know what I mean. Aim. Amy. Hi there. And Jesus. Jesus's evangelist Marvela. Hi there. The names can be very long and it's slightly intimidating to pronounce. Okay, so yeah. Steph, how are you? And if it's your first time here, we are a little more fun than today, except today you're catching me whilst I'm trying to teach. Okay, when I'm teaching the subject of cakes, it's a completely different ball game. Okay, that's all. Okay, Good Vibes is asking, what kind of cakes am I going to make next? You know what? I don't have a particular cake to mind that I want to make next. Actually, because it's the fall season, I had plans to make a lot of fall, as in autumn, winter type of simple bakes, from your pumpkin pie recipes to your spiced apple things, because over the Thanksgiving and Christmas seasons, these are very simplistic bakes that even if you don't want to decorate a cake, you can put together in your own way. And I wanted to focus much on that, except YouTube went left and I went left, so I haven't made a lot of those baking. So look, I've told you we are bringing back bake along, and actually we will be doing a bake along sometime this Friday, because it's end of the month. We already have 2 requests. One for Naomi, who wants a gluten-free chocolate cake, and a pumpkin pie type of cheesecake by Tatiana, right? So if you have any suggestions for things you want us to bake, just leave it in the chat and I will consider it. It's based on how many requests we have and how I can spread it. The more the request, the more I will taper them in, so that we will bring bake along back maybe once every 2 weeks or once a month, or I don't know. It all depends on the request. So that's a long-winded answer to say I don't have anything to mind right now. I am just kind of like catching up on some of the content that I had filmed already. The funny thing is, I've filmed a ton of ganache tutorials in the form of classes, which I was going to put up in the membership, and then I deactivated it because YouTube was playing up over there. So my hope is this is almost like a reshoot for me, if you like, but I'm not mad about it. at least I get to present the information to you and you get to see it live, other than spending 30 hours filming and editing one video. That's like, it's too much. That's just by the way. Pink Monkey said, you saw a face behind me. What do you mean? A face behind me? Well, I don't know what face you are seeing, unless it's still my face reflected somewhere. I don't know what face you are on about, but welcome to the channel, okay? Steph says, I've been missing due to the fun in Vegas. Did you go and gamble all the money? Steph, it's okay. It's okay. We know life happens and you need to go and have fun, okay? So whatever you did in Vegas, ever had, whatever happens in Vegas lives in Vegas. We hope you have some memories anyway from Vegas that you will keep, right? So yeah, Steph, we're not mad at you at all. In fact, we haven't been here. Yesterday was our first day back after a very long break, so we are not mad at all. It's just great to have you back, okay? Right. Yeah, we are on the subject of ganache. We made the ganache yesterday, and today we are using the ganache. So that's what we are. Dolly, you missed the start of the class, but as promised, I didn't do anything to the ganache. I came back and I just went, I started from when the ganache was left on the countertop. So at the end of the live, you can check for the replay so that you can see the full tutorial. It is going to be a full-on ganache cake. So the cake has been in the fridge for the time whilst we've still been catching up. So let me move this to the side. Let's look at the consistency of ganache that we have. Remember when I told you that when you whip the ganache, it eventually sets very quickly. Look. It has set now. Look, it has set now. You can't use it. So what you want to do when this happens is to put it in a bowl and then microwave it again for it to become spreadable. I'm going to show you what that should look like when it's like this. We're going to put it back in here. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There you go. 10 seconds exactly. And here's what we have. See? The 10-second trip. And that's what you have. Any more than this, your ganache will be unworkable. It will melt on you. And here's what we have. So if I was going to cover a cake with this, this is what I'll need it to be. Yeah? All right. Except I'm not going to need it. So I'm going to leave it to the side and wipe my countertop, get my knife warm, and then go get the cake so we can clean it up. Okay, our ganache cake is back, and I'm gonna okay. 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 At this point, do not do anything to it. Sharp edges, a little bit of unevenness on the edges, but I'm not fast about it. If I'm not squinting or you're not squinting here, this is a cleanly covered ganache cake. Okay. I think part of cake decorating is also knowing when to stop. Okay, knowing when to stop. If you're a beginner and you took a beginner's class and you were able to bring a cake to this form, that is more progress than you really think. So that's ganache made and how to use the ganache from crumb coat and whipped to polished whipped ganache used on a cake. I think that is the general gist of how to use ganache, how to make it and how to use it. Everything else is a build-up from here, from how you color the ganache to how you use the coloring process. These are the basics you need to understand first before we do anything else. So you will find that unless I am coming back to make ganache, which I will take you along the process, or perhaps I am coming back to make ganache in a specific way. For instance, I filmed my other video where I made the ganache using Emily and double creamed Emily and fresh cream together. That video I will put out for you to see, and then I will clip this in an organized format so that you can see that too. But anything else after this is a build up from this process, because these are the basics of how you make ganache, whether you are going to cover it, whether you're going to color it to cover a cake, whether you're not going to color it, you're going to whip it or not whip it, whether you're going to use it to stencil a cake. Whatever you do, you need to understand how to make the ganache, how the ingredients interact, how you are able to bring it to the consistency you require it for, and how you are able to keep the same consistency throughout the time of use. So I hope that in subsequent videos, unless I am specifically covering a particular subject, as in, for instance, making the different ratios of ganache. So for instance, if I was making a 4:1 ratio just to teach you what it looks like, to maybe a 2:1 ratio of white chocolate, or I am making a video on how to fix ganache when it is broken, I may not be repeating this process again, because everything else is just like a build-up. So next time, maybe if we came back to making a video on ganache, how to color ganache, I would have made the ganache and then we'll color it. So this video then becomes like a reference point for you to keep coming back to. So I hope that the subject of ganache, from how I make it, at least the one specific way, in many ways that ganache is made, you've learned something new from it. And I really hope you stick around, because like I said, the membership is gone. We're leveling the playing field. So everything I intend to bring is just like what's on my table. I'm not saving it. Let's just have it out here. And if you stay supportive of the channel, it will continue to grow and it will continue to derive you value. Okay. And I hope that is the purpose of us being here. So I hope this video has been some use to you. If you're catching this midway, you haven't missed out at all. The lives are unedited. You can see the part 1 of the ganache video, and this is 24 hours later, what we have on the work table. Now I'm going to put this cake back away, and then I'll come and answer some of your ganache questions. And then we'll catch up a little bit before the evening is over. I've had a really long day. There you go. Lollipop is back, is she? I thought Lollipop. Lollipop, you said goodbye. And I thought, oh, I didn't even manage to say a nice goodbye to you. So you're back. It's great to have you. Okay. Hey, Nana Wusua. Yeah, it's great to know where to stop, because sometimes you keep going and going, then you ruin it, and you're like, shoot, what have I done? I've had many of those moments. Okay. Are you a ganache user in the chat? Show by hand if you're a ganache user. Nana Wusua, welcome back. Have you any more questions about ganache? Lollipop went to eat dinner. Yeah, I know you went to eat dinner. Great to have you back though, person. Yeah, Lollipop, you've actually used specialty ganache, which is the lemon flavored one. Okay? The lemon flavored ganache is not like the ganache everybody knows. So you are in the inner sanctum of ganache people. Okay? What was your experience of using ganache? I like ganache. Look at how set it feels. Look, you can play with the thing. Buttercream by this time will be coming back to room temperature and be playing with you over here. Buttercream is not my friend, people. Lollipop says it was good, but I definitely made it too thick. If you follow the ratio consistency, it shouldn't have been that thick. Or was it a case of bringing it back to the right consistency for spreading on the cake that made it too thick for you? Either way, look, we are here now. Our ganache cake is all done. This is probably what you need if you want to cover a cake in fondant so that it will keep its form. And if I left this on the countertop by morning, it will still be set because it's kind of the weather is not hot and it will keep form. Whereas buttercream will just come back to room temperature and will get sticky. So it's neither here nor there. Let me wash my hands. Okay. So Dolly says, is that not too thick for a very moist cake? What do you mean, darling? Did you mean the ganache is too thick on the cake? Or can you break it down a bit? Because if you mean is the layer of ganache not too thick, did you notice, you must have noticed the card underneath, and because I trimmed the cake, you must have noticed the small gap. That gap is just, if you look closely here, if I look, here's the card, right? And the gap between the card and the cake was very little, and that was intentional. It's less than 0.25 over there. So if I were to cut, actually I'll just show you, because these are some of the questions that are necessary in cake decorating, just to give context and clarity. If I were to cut into this cake, this is the amount of ganache we have. Can you see? Right? Because that's the cake over there, and that's the ganache you see here. So Dolly, there you go. So you decide if this is thick. I mean, the conversation of how thick ganache goes on a cake is relative and can be very subjective from decorator to decorator. I know it can be a very contentious subject, and I am wary not to plaster too much ganache on, simply because the more you have, the more unstable your cake is likely to become in very difficult conditions. And it kind of takes away from the cake, because why would you lose cake to have layers of ganache on it? So for me, I like to think that for my decorating preferences, I use just as enough ganache as needed for the result. And so just to answer your question, this is what we have. This is by cutting into it. This is the amount of thickness we have from there, and then you are seeing into the cake. But if I were to cut into the cake itself, maybe perhaps you will see better. I just don't want to cut into the cake. So I guess my answer will be the subject of how thick, from my perspective, is reasonable because it's still within the line, and I trimmed the cake with the intention of leaving that gap. Now, whether that is too thick or not, it's a question for the customer to answer, but more so to be determined by each decorator's preferences. That's all. So yeah, Dolly, what do you think? There you go. That's not going back in. So I can fill it back up, but I'm not doing that. At least I've answered the question, at least. And for those of you wondering, there you have it. Because Dolly was asking about the thickness of ganache. And yes, sometimes I also know that if you remember when we had the conversation about the cake you covered, and I said, how did you get the thickness a little shorter? And you said, because of your pants, you end up covering and it edges out. So in circumstances like that, if you're not careful, you will end up adding and adding, and then you get a block of ganache. Whilst I like the great taste of ganache, I don't want it in excess. So for what it is worth, well, it has the question has answered itself. There you go. Look, here is the cake, here is the ganache. Now, show by hand. Look, I love the lives out here. I love them. The question has answered itself, Dolly. Okay? Now, is that thick ganache for you? Put a yes. If you had a cake and you had this much ganache around it, will that be too thick for you, or that is... This is not just for Dolly, people. All of you in the chat. All of you in the chat, is this thick? If you had a cake and you had this much ganache around it, will that be too thick for you? Because I think that is okay, relatively, because look, there's only, here's the cake and this is how much ganache you need. No more than that. Any more than this, you'll be edging out and the cake will be deformed. I am so happy. This has answered itself. I mean, the good thing is that it's ganache, right? So I'll look, I'll clean it up later. I mean, the demonstration is worth it because the whole thing is to show you exactly what we're doing. So there you have it. That's how thick it could be. I mean, I'm not mad. There you go. And I am handling it by hand. And remember, we just brought it out of the fridge. And there you go. So I'm going to put it back. And that's it. If it was buttercream, this cake will be deforming in my hands. Okay? So, Dolly, what do you think? I mean, Lollipop says hers was 3 times thicker than this. Good Vibe says thick enough for them. Mine is okay. Like, this is fine for me. What do you think, Dolly? Is there filling in that one? Yes. This is the base cake. The cake has raspberry filling in it. Raspberry Swiss meringue buttercream. But on the bottom of the cake, which is on the card, it's ganache instead of filling. Because if there was any filling underneath, the cake will shift and fall. So there you have it. So yeah. Let me wash my hands. Seasons. Steph says she didn't know that ganache was firm. Like, yeah, ganache is very firm. So yeah, I've held it and you can make it looser, you can make it thicker, but there you have it. So you know what? We made the ganache, we polished the ganache, then we ruined it. I love it here, okay? I love it. But yeah, I like it when we can really demonstrate an answer. Because once Dolly asked the question, my inclination was to see, okay, that's a brilliant question. Let's cut into it just so that we can determine the thickness. But thickness, besides a reasonable amount of thickness that can be all accepting for all parties, it is a very subjective matter, right? From the question she was asking, I've seen cakes where the cake looks small on the inside and there's a block of buttercream or ganache on the side. And I'm like, that's too much. I ordered a cake, not the ganache. Okay? And then in my long-winded way of trying to answer it, I flip the cake and it's like, okay, there you go. That's so good. People, right? I love that we were able to find an answer. But yeah, we made the cake and then we ruined it. That's it, people. Oh, God. Well, at least we've done that, right? So, if we don't have any more questions about ganache, people, did I tell you I have more baking to do and I have to clean up and I've got stuff to do? So, we'll be back tomorrow, okay? I'll be back. I will certainly be back. I'm here all week anyway. It all depends. I've got to go finish up this cake because this cake has to be decorated and I've got stuff to do, people. So it's nearly 7:45. Great to be back, and I hope the video was valuable to you in some way. The subject of ganache will follow in other tutorials, but maybe tomorrow we'll be back with a regular bake or something like that. There will be long form videos for you to catch up onto. I'll see you in the next one, people. Thank you for being here and do take care. Have a great evening. Bye bye, people.